Okay, so my name is Aditi Singhania. I'm one of the heads at Kharagpur Data Analytics Group. And today, this is my first session where I will be explaining a bit about what is neural machine translation and how attention mechanism was introduced in it. So, beginning with understanding of what exactly NMT is. So, it translating from one language to another with the help of artificial neural network based models. And this is known as sequence to sequence models. Now, why sequence to sequence? Just because, suppose I say a sentence in English, my name is Aditi Singhania. That is a sequence because it is consisting of words in a particular fashion. And then in Hindi, I will say, Mera naam Aditi Singhania hai. That is also a sequence. So we are converting from one sequence to another sequence with the help of neural network based models. Any kind of translator like Google Translator, any other translator which are online use this mechanism. And this architecture is known as encoder decoder architecture. Now, moving ahead, you can see on my left side there is a encoder written box and on right side there is decoder and in between there is a feature vector. So let's start with the general thing that we do not have any attention mechanism because attention is something that was introduced very recently. What we used to do is we had an encoder model where by encoder I mean an LSTM layers, different LSTM layers. Like usually we have for any deep learning model, what we do is we create a sequential layers. We keep on adding LSTM layer or GRU or in CNN pooling layers, kind of this layer. And similarly, in sequence, we use RNN, where RNN has its own structure, hidden cell, and the encoder is made of it. Now, as you people might be aware that the RNN also has a hidden state. So what we do is, from encoder, suppose my last word is Singhania, and it will give me a hidden state. And I will consider that as a feature vector. And that feature vector will help me to initialize my decoder. Now, being more clear about this, suppose why cannot I directly, translate my name is Aditi Singhania to Mera naam Aditi Singhania hai with a normal model and not using encoder decoder. So, anybody would like to answer on that, or you can also write in chat box.
Yeah, please do interact, and yeah, that would be better actually, understanding wise and also interaction wise. So feel free to unmute, feel free to put your question, put your answer what Aditi asked now in the chat. It would be nice actually.
Okay, so I'm pre-assuming that you people are very newbie in this kind of sequence to sequence model. So I will just go on with this. Like when we have
Actually, hello Aditi, someone asked to repeat the question again. So someone was unable to hear. Can you repeat the question again?
yeah, sure. So I was asking why am I using this encoder decoder structure where we have a feature vector in between? Why not just the normal model like we use for any other training data?
Because while speaking in terms of language, the whole sentence, like each and every word has a relation with the upcoming next or the previous word. So on while translating, we have to consider the relation between the words and the meaning of each word that's coming. So we have to derive data out from every words and their relatability with each other. So we use a feature vector array and not simply decode for each and every word. That won't make sense while coming out as a sentence.
Okay, I somewhat agree to it. Also, the fact to this is it is not necessary that the length of suppose I'm translating from English to Hindi, that my length of sequence in both English and Hindi are same. Suppose I say, "What are you doing?" It has four letters and a fifth punctuation mark. And if I translate it to Hindi, then it will be "क्या कर रहे हो?" Okay, it's four. No, like, but usually it's not like that. Usually it may happen that a word has a five length in English, and when you're translating, it's a four length. That is why we are using two separate LSTM structure. One is encoder, another one is decoder. What does encoder do is it tries to summarize the meaning. Suppose uh, suppose if you're saying that why am I doing this, then the encoder will try to store its meaning in form of vectors, and then it will try to pass that meaning to the decoder. I hope you people are getting of how this NMT is working. Yeah, yes or no, anything you can just type in chat so that I can proceed. Continue. Cool. Now, also one thing comes in my mind while I do write my encoder model is, suppose I have a training data set where I have around 12,000 to 14,000 English sentences, and each of them will again be different because it might be my name is Aditi Singhania, then some another sentence which is of 10 lines, some sentence only good, and some sentence which have maybe 200 length. So how would I generalize my encoder model? If you people are used to writing RNN models, then how can you generalize your encoder model? Because at every training data set, at every training point, my length of the sequence is changing. How do we ensure that the encoder structure remains the same? So for that, what do we do is we do padding. Now, what does padding mean? Padding means we try to add zeros at the last or at the first of the sentences. Usually, it's at the end of the sentence. And then we also create tokenizers because generally not, it's the fact that machine learning models or deep learning models cannot understand string data. So we try to convert them into numbers. And there and that numbers then understand the correlation among each other. Now, when it comes to correlation among the numbers, there are many ways. You can use one hot encoding where I don't think the model is able to capture any kind of sequence. Then you have TF IDF vectorizer. You also now have word to vec and glove to vec. So this is kind of embedding. Now in this kind of embedding techniques, what they do is they use some kind of neural network to understand the relation among the words in one sentence. This is how they do. And then you apply LSTM feature vector and decoder kind of thing. Okay. Now, yeah, this is the question I already asked something. Okay. Now, why attention mechanism when we already had this encoder decoder structure? Then why do you think there was a need for an attention mechanism? Anybody would like to answer that? Okay, maybe everybody's too tired. So I will start with this, like, see, this feature vector, I will just go 2, 3 slides back here. This feature vector would be of a fixed size because it is my last hidden state of encoder, so its size cannot be changed, and it is summarizing the meaning of the entire sentences it is receiving. Now, suppose when my sentences are too long, this feature vector might truncate some words from the last and would not be able to store the correct amount of meaning. So automatically the model is not going to perform good because decoder is not getting the exact meaning. So how do we expect it to translate properly? There will be genuine errors, okay? And that is why we needed attention mechanism. Now, what exactly attention mechanism does is it directly links encoder outputs to decoder inputs, sorry. So there's no involvement of a fixed context vector. For each time step, we create our own context vector. Now, how do we do that? Let's understand that. So you can see in this picture, this my below one is the encoder layer, and above it is the attention mechanism. Now what happens is when we were using normal encoder decoder structure, the encoder outputs were of no use. We completely discarded them, and what we focused was only on the last encoder hidden state, and that was the only sole meaning we had to pass to decoder. Now, now what I'm doing is, suppose I have a sequence of length 4, x1, x2, x3, x4, and they will obviously have output at each time step, which I say is h1, h2, h3, and h4. Now, what I will try to do is I will create 4 context vector. And how would I do is I will say alignment 4. So this alpha t1 is my alignment 1, alpha t2 is for output 2 of the encoder, and similarly for 3 and 4. And then what I do is I simply multiply alpha t1 into h1 plus alpha t2 into h2 plus alpha t3 into h3 plus alpha t4 into h4, and this is how I get my context vector. And then again I will have different alignment scores to calculate C2, and I will have a new context vector for my second timestamp, and this is how I will get 4 different context vector. Now, this weights, this alpha t1, alpha t2, alpha t3, and alpha t4 would be different each time, and depending upon their value, my decoder at particular timestamp would focus on that words. Say, I'm writing a sentence like everything was good today, and I want to translate it. So suppose in my first timestamp I want to focus more on the first word and the second word. So alpha t1 and alpha t2 would have higher values, and alpha t3 and alpha t4 would have lower values. That is how it should be. अब वो होगा कैसे, that we do by training. So in general, what we do in any kind of model, we initialize the weight, and then we use epochs, and then we continuously train them, optimize our model, and try to get the result which we think is appropriate. You have to set the parameters in hypertuning part and all of that. We will not go there, but this is how it is done. So now how H1, H2, H3, H4 we calculated. We already had the sequence. We initialized the weight. Now, how do we plan to calculate alpha T1, alpha T2, alpha T3, and alpha T4 at each timestamp? So now we will understand step by step to apply this attention mechanism. And before proceeding, I would also like to specify that we have 2 different kind of attention mechanism as of now. One is additive, another one is multiplicative. So there's not much difference, but in my slide, I've explained the one with the addition because it was the first attention mechanism introduced. Now there are 6 points which I have written, but instead I would like to show you a diagram and explain it. So what we do is we have to calculate alpha. Okay. Now how I do it is I consider the all encoder hidden states. You can see H1 in blue, H2 in orange, H3 with some other color, and H4 with mostly red. Now I would have a weight matrix WA. So if you're familiar with the internal structure of LSTM, you will know that we have WA, WH, and this is how we have different weights which we try to train while getting the output. We try to train it in our model. Okay, now what I do is I multiply this weight with my encoder hidden state, and then I add it to my decoder hidden state at timestamp 4. So with its weight, with its own weight. So suppose what we do usually when we try to proceed is we have some output from previous cell, and suppose I have 3 cells. I have output from each of these cells, and now I will have different weights for them. And to get another output, what I do is I multiply that weight with the output and do the summation and get the another value. So this is how we this is the first step. Then what we do is we apply a tanh layer. So why this layer is applied? This is applied to introduce non-linearity. So that why do we introduce nonlinearity? Actually, we introduce it because we want to identify some hidden patterns which are way more complex, way more complex than us to understand, and that is why we apply nonlinearity in the model. So that is it is no prepared for every case scenario of any kind of sequence. We give it into it and it translated properly. Now, what would be my next step? I will use my alignment transport weight and multiply it with the above alignments alpha 1 4. Now also what we do is we apply softmax to this layer, and why do we do that is um, they do not want very large values, because as you might know, when the values get large, the complexity of the model increases. So what we do is we apply softmax, so the summation of all the alphas are 1. Basically, the amount of contribution of each alpha wouldn't change whether I submit to 1 or not submit to 1, but it do affect my way the model will compute. So I use the softmax, and then I get alpha 1 1, alpha 1 2, alpha 1 3, and alpha 1 4. Now, as I stated earlier in this, that we need this alpha t1 t2 t3 t4. I have all of it. I have h1 h2 h3 h4, and I will get my context vector. Now when I get my context vector, what I will do is I will give it to my decoder. Let's go a step back. I will give it to my decoder. It will then perform its operation like like a normal LSTM cell, and then it will give an output, which will be then the input to the next decoder step. Then again, it will combine with the next context vector, which is C2. It will get another output, and this is how we will translate. Now, one thing to keep in mind is for our target sequence, while you write the code, what we do is we add a start and an end token. And why do we do that is because um, this is done because, see, you already know my name is Aditi Singhania because you're familiar with English. Now, suppose you're not familiar with Gujarati. So, how would you know that the length of that sentence in length of this sentence in Gujarati would be what? My name is Aditi Singhania is like 5 words in English, but in Gujarati, how much? What would be the length? I don't know. Similarly, my model don't know. So I have to tell it that whenever you start the translation, if you find the start token, that means that is how you have to get alert that now the Gujarati first word is going to come, and when it sees end, that now you have to end. That Gujarati translation is complete. That is why we add the start and end token. Okay, now there's nothing much to say on this. But one thing which I would like to mention is we do have a kind of a score, beam search kind of thing, where what we do is suppose a word in English can be translated into two different kinds of word in Hindi. Now, how do you analyze which word fits more in that sentence? So this is how where beam search comes in picture, and it helps us in figuring out which of out of the two words is correct. And this is the later part of the thing. Now, since I have given a very brief overview of what is neural machine translation, what I will advise you all is to try to write the code on the basis of the slides which I have provided, of whatever you understood, of how did you understood weights are multiplying in C. Write that code down and use a very simple data set of your own, or you can also take that data set from the internet and short it down, and then go on the internet and see another models. How do they write? What I personally believe is there are a lot of ways to write attention mechanism code and encoder decoder structure. We have class, we have different functions, we sometimes use self.w, but not all of us are comfortable in writing in that fashion. So start writing with the even basic thing, like you are using the functional API in the Keras. and you're adding layer by layer, you're going step by step with no class, with no self initialization stuff, and then you see how your model is working just on the base of gross structure. And this is how you will be able to customize it further, because see, what I'm using from one data set is not necessary I will be using for all of my data sets. When we try to say generate lyrics or any other Hindi lyrics or English lyrics, Korean lyrics, we do have to introduce modifications. And if you're very familiar with how to write the code from the basics, you can introduce any layer. Attention is nothing different. It is like encoder, decoder layer, and I have added a attention layer in between. With the additive structure, you can try your own. You can create different kind of addition, and you can see how is it working, and you can add that layer in between. So do experiment with this, and then you will see how result varies.